I'd like to welcome each and every individual to Voices of Integrity podcast for mental health. And today's session is going to be, we're talking about empathy. And you might be thinking, well, how's that affect my mental health? And so when we talk about, when we've talked in the past and past podcasts about the emotional or the quantum feeling model. And so, and how our feelings, it seems like, our feelings impact our mental health. Our mental health impacts our feelings. It seems like it's a two-way street. So, Tim, you had read the article. I had read it too, about where it says that, my empathy felt authentic until I was on the receiving end of my own advice. Now I see the difference between true empathy and mere words. And so this is from a therapist, who is talking about doing, I know how you feel and that kind of stuff. What did you pick up from the article, Tim?
So it's from the article. I think that a lot of people hear and not listen, um, see and not do. So when they're listening to people, they oftentimes try to just like hear them and give them advice, and they're trying to feel for them. But, you know, based off an example, like when, John died, you pushed to experience real empathy by going into that room to be able to put yourself into my shoes to try to feel as much as you could of my pain. And I think that a lot of people, I think, get scared to feel other people's pain. So they want to be empathetic. They want to feel good because it helps them to feel good, to help others. But nobody wants to, step in the shoes and walk the path that person walked. If that makes sense.
Does a lot. See, it's weird because as I've pursued, I'll be forever grateful to my brother Ken and my son Ben, who both told me, like, at the same time, Mark, Dad, your feelings are important. And I was 59 when that happened. And so it's weird. Like, I'm like, I don't think my feelings are that important. Yes, they are. Like, I had processed, I think, like, yes, our feelings are super important, but not the way we think our feelings are important. like, like I think our feelings, so many times we use our feelings as weapons. Like we use you made me feel bad. You hurt me. You did this and this. And we make it our feelings about what other people did to us rather than what's happening inside of us. And
I
and
think that
so it's
was
weird. Go ahead.
I think that was one of the greatest things that was taught in therapy, that has helped me a ton, is explaining that it's just a feeling. Because like oftentimes people think that feelings are truth. But when you're in an eradicated state, your brain can play all types of tricks. So like, you might be working in a hot room all day, and someone gives you a friendly piece of advice and you snap on them because you think that you are 100% correct on that. But in reality, you've been in a hot room all day, your brain is a little fuzzed. And so um I think that people oftentimes think all their feelings are completely, it's the truth because that's the way they feel. So I give, they're called I feel statements. Is, someone makes me upset, I'm going to let them know, like, hey, when you did this, I feel this is how. this is how it made me feel. This is how I think you're thinking. And it's a I feel statement versus like you did this. This is exactly how you think, because I think a lot of people like oftentimes push to know exactly what's going on in people's heads when in reality a lot of times most humans don't even know what's going on in their own head.
Right? I mean, like I remember when I was 40, I think I've shared this in a couple other podcasts. When I was 40, going through a really, we'd been married for 20 years, so I turned 60 on Tuesday. And we're going through a really hard time in our marriage. It was brutal. And my uncle, who's a pastor and had a lot of marriage counseling, he sat down and he worked on me for an hour, couldn't get anywhere. And then, it's like a stone wall. Like it's just like he kept pushing, kept trying to get in. Not bad. I mean, I appreciated it a lot. I mean, it wasn't, I just like he couldn't get through. He could not get through. And my wife was there, and and then my aunt Carrie was there. And after an hour of this, she said, Gary, you're not getting through to Mark. It's like, no, he could tell. And he was trying a bunch of different ways, over the wall, under the left, the right, blow it up, tear it down somehow. He was trying all these different ways. He couldn't get through. She said, well, let me give it a try. So absolutely. And she looked right into my eyes and she said, Mark, I think you've been hurt at a heart level. And immediately I started crying. I started weeping. I'm like, I mean, I was just broken. And I was just like tears were flooding down my face. Finally, after a lot of tears, I'm like whimpering. I said, so Aunt Carrie, like, how do I fix that? How do I heal it? She's like, I don't know. I'm like, what? Like, what? But it was okay. Like, she didn't even have to have the answer. It's like she could feel, she could have empathy. She could feel she wasn't, she's just like, here's the diagnosis. It seems like you've been hurt at a heart level. So there's been a 20-year journey that I've had from 40 to 60 to try to figure out how do you heal when you've been hurt at a heart level. And the first thing I think, I needed to know, Mark, you've been hurt at a heart level. Well, how do you heal at a heart level? I think you have to be hurt at a heart level. Like she heard, and to be hurt at a heart level, it's like you got to have empathy. Here's a new system, Tim. I don't know if you've seen it. So phase one is, what is your earliest memory of being hurt by someone?
My earliest memory of being hurt by someone, in my vision, I'm not saying this is the reality, but this is how I remember it.
Just before Tim goes on, okay? Before Tim goes on, I want to put a bookmark on that. Do you see the words and the caution? Do you see that the insight and the discipline of what he's saying? Like, do you see that? I don't think most people do. They're like, okay, yeah, okay. But he did, what he's doing is before he's sharing, he's saying, this is my memory, but I'm not saying it's true. I'm not saying that it's right. I'm just saying this is my memory. It's his memory. And his memory is really important. But I think a lot of times when we share memories, other people think that what we're thinking is those are real, often because that we think they're real. But Tim is so when you're sharing this with someone else, do exactly what Tim did. And when somebody does that to you, be appreciative of them and recognize they're not saying it about you. They're just saying, hey, this is what it is. Sorry to interrupt him, but I wanted people to see that because that's important.
So I was about 4 or 5, and I was sitting in the back office room. It was, it used to be me, John's, and Ben's room across from Ginger Ann's room. And I was sitting there with you and Mom. And I stubbed my finger, and it hurt so, so, so bad. And I'm bleeding, and I'm crying. And you walk up to it, grab my hand, look at my hand, and said, "Men don't cry. Now stop it," and walked away. And that was like my first memory of being like okay, this is how it's going to be like to be a man. Not to say that it hurt, but it was kind of a perspective thing of like, okay, men's mental health sometimes is just rock it out. I heard a quote one time where it's, men don't cry. Men sit at their wall. Men sit there and stare at their wall until they want to die. And then they wake up and they do it all over again.
So this is really cool. Tim shared, what's neat about it is it was done by me. So did you guys all see the consideration from Tim? There's things that he has memory that I'm like, I don't remember that, and I don't remember this. There's things that he says, I'm like, man, I don't see myself saying that. This I can totally see myself saying. Like I totally, yeah, yep, probably said that. Number two, 1-2 is why did this hurt?
Um, I think it was a realization of like I would see people around me, like, young girls and stuff, crying all the time. And people would be like, oh, come here, poor baby. And then when it happened to me, it like, it was kind of my first experience of not like it hurt in a weird way. It was like, oh, okay, like this is being a man. Like you don't show pain. You become an emotionalist zombie. You do what you need to do, and you kind of just suck it up. And 4 or 5 year old me probably wasn't thinking that. I was probably thinking, Dad just yelled at me. I want to cry. My finger hurts. But looking back on it now, I'm like, man, that was like crud. And I had another situation that again, wasn't wasn't probably 100% reality of it, but it was a wrestling meet, and I just got my ass handed to me, and I'm limping off, and I start crying, and you like kind of shuffle over me, like pick me up, and you're like look me in my eyes, and you're like, Tim, never let the opponent see you like that. And I was like, and it's not like it's a good hurt. I think that a lot of people
But
often
do you
thinks
think
that
it was a good hurt for you back then, or it's a good hurt now when you're reflecting
good
back?
hurt now, reflecting now. Well, back in the day, it was kind of like it's like kind of someone saying something jagged to you and stabs you in a weird way, and you're like, oh man, it's not what I wanted to hear in that moment. I wanted to hear you tried your best or something like that.
Yeah.
But now, looking back at it as an adult, it's like, yeah, that hurt, but I, man, do I love hurt. I love it. I love pain. I love hurt. Maybe I'm a masochist. I don't know. But like that feeling of like, man, I got a lot of people. I either got to prove right or wrong. The biggest person I am trying to prove wrong right now is myself. Because most of my life I doubted myself. I put myself down, and I, you know, never expected to make it this far in age, let alone mentality. And so now it's like, when, John passed away, I had $15,000 put away. And I spent it in 3 months because I'm like, man, I'm going to have an adventure. I'm going to spend all my money, and then I'm going to kill myself. And then I spent all my money, had these grand adventures, and had so much fun because I realized what money could do. Like John used to say, is nobody's money doesn't buy happiness, but it buys jet skis. And you never see someone upset on a jet ski. So I spent all that money, and I realized, man, like life is really fun. It sucks, but life is really, really fun. And I think I'm learning that delayed gratification of like, if you have fun every day, it's not really fun. It just gets boring. And so now I'm at a point where it's like, I don't want to, like, obviously you make the best of every day and you can have fun in every day. There's a time and a place for it, though. You work hard, you play hard, you do what you got to do, you get stuff done, and you can go home and you can relax and you can feel good about relaxing because you earned it. Versus, oh, I sat around all day. Let's go relax. After we've relaxed for 12 hours, it doesn't feel good. You haven't released those endorphins, those things that strive to get out of your brain every day because you're just being lazy. But now, feeling like a non-lazy butthead, it's just like, man, it feels good. And I had someone the other day say to me that I reminded them of a young them. And this person I look up to a lot, and I think they're a really rad person, and I think they've endured a lot. And so when they said that, I was like, man, I am at work. You cannot make me cry right now type of situation. It's like, dude, that just kind of see before I, putting in the work, I didn't think my work was showing. But someone also told me killers work in silence. It's not like, oh, don't brag, don't show, like obviously be humble, but you don't need to tell people you're doing things because they're going to notice. And if they don't notice, you're not working hard enough.
I remember when I was in high school and I had to outline sentences and paragraphs, hated it. But this is what I want to do with Tim's conversation. I want to highlight it, stop it, pause it, highlight. Do you see what he just did there? Do you see what he just did there? We'll have another follow-up podcast for this for sure. Write out number 3, 1-3, write out what is on your heart, mind, and soul. Maybe Tim will do this actually and kind of bring back his poems. It'd be really cool to go ahead and see Tim write a poem about his first memory of hurt. And then what about other hurts? Like he shared 2 of them. And there's a pattern there, an interesting pattern. And then why does it hurt? And could he put a poem there? And then what's on his heart, mind, and soul? Could he put a poem there? And then phase 2 is thinking about it. Like, so when you reflect on what you wrote in phase 1, what do you see, feel, and hear? And then who can I share my, answers to in phase 1? And then there's some additional things like when you're sharing, you got to have some consideration about that, because if people, when we share hurt and pain, if they don't respond the way we think they ought to, the way we want them to, the hurt becomes more. And so what we learn is don't share our hurt because it just makes it worse. And then phase 3 is, what are we going to do? So when you look at the responses, so this whole system, hopefully it'll help us to have empathy for other people. It'll help us to have maybe empathy, for ourselves. If you have any questions, definitely for sure register for the group for the Life GPS. Then you'll be assigned a mentoring. Somebody will be introduced to somebody who can help you in the group, and which podcasts are the best for you and how you progressing on and all those type of things. If you have any questions, connect with the individual who invited you to participate, or you can call toll free 888-230-2300, outside the US 630-393-9909. Always remember, we can accomplish so much more together than we ever could on our own. Have an amazing day. Bye-bye.